Yes. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. It is 6 p.m. It is also May the 7th, 2024. I will call to order the Keystone Heights Airport Authority Board of Directors meeting. Ask that you please stand for prayer and then pledge of allegiance. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we pause to give you thanks. We praise you for who you are. We thank you for the love and the grace and the mercy that you've extended to each one of us. Father, we thank you for the freedom that we exercise tonight. We don't take that for granted. We think about those who have given their life to provide us this freedom. We thank you for them. We pray that you give us wisdom tonight, understanding, Lord, a collaborative spirit to accomplish the things that need to be addressed tonight for the airport and for the benefit of the city, the counties, Lord, that this airport lays in. We give you praise for all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Kuhn, roll call, please.
Mr. Kirkland.
Here.
Mr. Fryer.
Here.
Mr. Dagenet.
Here.
Mr. Ludwig. Here. Mr. Seymour.
Here.
Ms. Hall.
Here.
All right, and also, Mr. Kuhn, if you'll just let our minutes note that Mayor Rodenroth is here with us as well tonight, as well as Frank Host with the Sportsman's Club. And so, all right, moving forward, do we have any public comment?
No, we do not. I'm sorry. No.
All right, we'll move to item 2 on our agenda, the consent agenda. In that you had received previously by email are the March 2024 financials, as well as the April 2nd, 2024 Keystone Heights Airport Authority Board meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Senior. Do I hear a second? Hear a second. Any discussion, questions, corrections to the minutes?
Yes.
All right.
There was discussion about the city purchasing the corner property down there, and it said that it was at the corner of State Road 116. Should be State Road 121.
Yeah, that's correct. Geographically, that would be pretty significant. That would be hard to do. Yeah. Don't know any buildings on that corner.
I was trying to place it.
Yeah.
There will be buildings there eventually, I'm sure. So, all right, we can get that fixed. They even talked about that last night at the city council again. I think they're still high-fiving each other. Any other corrections? All right, Mr. Kuhn, if you'll note those. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries with the corrections as noted by Mrs. Hall. We received word earlier this afternoon that Mr. Prang was not going to be with us tonight. Many of you may know that his father-in-law has not been well. He's in assisted living, and he said that he had to be with him tonight. So he did ask that we move forward with the approval of the supplemental agreement, which was also in your packet. And this is for the West Side Road Service fence and gate project. He did ask us that on the change order for runway 1129, there was some more information that he wanted to be here personally to share, and asked that we table that until the June meeting. So, Mr. Kuhn, if you'll make a note of that to include that, make sure that's included in the June agenda. On the supplemental agreement that was submitted, if you had gone through those documents there, those are typical of what we normally receive from AECOM when they are overseeing a project. And within that document, there were some exhibits that spelled out the specific responsibilities for what they will be doing, as well as some of the costs. The scope of services was there, as well as, what was Exhibit B? I believe that was the fee proposal. Any questions about that project?
I have a little bit of information, and I don't know if it impacts going ahead and voting on the project or not, but, so I spoke with Mr. Carnegie about the road, the Bradford County New Access Road, and I just wanted to get background on it, on how we're moving forward and everything. And so he told me that they were going to go ahead and pave the apron and put a culvert in, but because they haven't received funding this year for the deceleration lane, then that's not going to be done. And I don't know if we discussed that and everybody understood that or not, but apparently once the fence is done, we've talked about that, once the fence has been put in, then they're supposed to be doing that. They're going to put in the mitered culvert, they're going to put in the apron. However, that I didn't understand at the time is that that can only be used for emergency service. It can't be an open, I mean, it can't just be used regular, it has to be only for emergency. So I didn't know if everybody was aware of that or not.
So I wasn't aware about the funding. I was under, the last conversation I had with Mr. Cornegay was that the county was ready and they had gotten the permission from DOT to connect. Yeah. So I knew there was some lime rock and other materials still on site that they've been staging here for that. So I guess given that information, then we can probably either select to move forward with this. It's going to have to be done eventually. We're going to need that fence moved and the gate put in. Perhaps we don't want to have just an open fence there and then a ditch and a part of 100 and then the new access road exposed. So what's the pleasure of the board? You want to table this till next month to where we can have a little more conversation with Mr. Cornegay? I knew the slow down lanes and the turn lanes were part of the appropriations request that we had submitted and unfortunately didn't get funding this year for. So I'm good with tabling it if y'all want to do that.
I don't know why we would need to table it.
Yeah.
And here's why I say that. Because we're discussing the movement of the fence, which would be inside of the proposed future crossover road, right? That needs to be done no matter what. And the fence needs to be installed no matter what in order for them to connect to 100 in the future. So it's just a matter of completing this project so when they're ready in the future, it's there for them to do.
I think maybe one of the things we could look at, I think the only way that I would be agreeable to it is if we could leave the existing fence and then they could still build a new fence down the new access road and put the gate in, because I don't think we need to have that, because it's 500 feet. If you look on the drawing, that's 500 feet off State Road 100 into the airport property. So even though we would have fencing down the side, I'd be a little concerned about not having that fence that's existing there now continuing to be a barrier until that connection was actually done. So I'm in agreement with doing that. Like you say, this work's got to be done anyway. Engineering's got to be done.
So can I ask a question?
Certainly.
I'm sorry, I want to make sure I fully understand what you said. So why you said it can only be an emergency access road and not, what was the?
Because there is no deceleration lane, so therefore it's not set up for use as a regular entrance and exit So that's a DOT thing. So from
But
what,
we don't have one for the one we have now, right?
all I know is that from what Mr. Cornegay told me, that was an agreement with the DOT that it would not be used except for emergency.
Okay.
That's new to me too.
Well, I just talked to.
This had been
Scott not that
explained to
long
us,
ago.
yeah.
He said he would mobilize in 2 weeks. He said if you
He
guys
told me he
had,
would build it, yeah. I mean, he said, well, we can do the apron and we can do that, but
I don't know if
It's
it
gotta
was
stay
heard in one of
closed.
these meetings or if I just got this from Scott, but first off, the reason they couldn't initially do it is because the state right of way belongs to the state. He said that because they had that grant money and they had a little bit left, that they went to the state, and the reason the state made the exception to do the tie to the road with those funds, it won't cost Bradford County, the state will pay for it. But the deceleration lanes missed the appropriations this past year. We missed the deadline.
No, we didn't miss the deadline. Everything that we submitted was on time and was evaluated by the various committees that it has to
Oh, and
go
it just
through.
didn't get hit this
That's
time.
correct. It just didn't make it through the process of appropriations being approved to the governor's budget.
Well, I still think we should do it because it does provide an emergency entrance. And especially when they have that Jeep event over there, there's a lot of people in there. If this road here is blocked with traffic coming in, that would give EMS or law enforcement a direct shot. And it's going to be tied eventually. And if we don't tie it, and then later on the DOT says, well, we're not going to do the appropriations, at least it's tied now. If we put Bradford County off, they may lose that money. I say do it. I don't understand the need to come in 400 feet. I know we were talking about the length of a semi-truck at one time. So we were talking about 100 feet or maybe 200 feet in, and then it got changed to 400.
The reason for.
Well, to be behind the future crossover road.
Correct.
Is that what it was for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So that nobody could get down there or,
Well, because in order to be a primary entrance toward the airport property, really, we would have to have some other fencing done to fence off the airport operations area, portion of the airport. And that would just have to be done in the future.
Right. So the design and planning that was done by CHW for Bradford County for the new access road also included the interconnect road. So
do you know what he's talking about there, that crossover? Okay.
So the reason then was that if that would be the first area of development parallel to State Road 100, then we needed that gate to be beyond the interconnect road.
Okay.
So that businesses could still come access that portion.
That makes sense.
And then the other.
So that
down
road
there.
defines.
The separation between the air side and the land side of the airport property.
Okay.
Yeah, the businesses would be able to come in and be on the land side
Correct.
at that point. Yeah,
Plus, isn't-
it's like if we look at the map right there directly behind you guys there, that's the section with the chevron yellow stripes, right? That's what you're talking about.
And
Right,
hasn't DOT already approved, didn't we already approve the fencing funding? What was it, 200,000?
Yes, we have a grant to do all of the fencing work.
Right.
And that's not costing us anything. So I think what's interesting is this new information about some limitations apparently that DOT had put on the county with respect to that road. So, of course, that's manageable. That can, we can accommodate whatever those requirements may be or restrictions may be. That'll be part of what has to be in the, airport operations and the way things are done. I agree. I'm in agreement to move forward with the project, but I think we need to just tell Mr. Prang that existing fence has to stay there until DOT or till the county gets their funding to tie it to 100. So we still move forward with the project.
I thought we had this discussion, and I thought Bradford wouldn't do it until we moved the fence. I thought that was the.
That is what they
So if
said.
we don't move the fence there, are you concerned about somebody drag racing on that part? Yes.
I'd be thinking about jumping and
That kind of makes sense.
They already do it on this road.
Well,
You don't have to look far to see witnessing about once a month or so. There's burnouts here, so.
well, we've already talked to Mr. Corrigay about those concerns as well from the gate in. And, you know, he has assured us that he'll get with the sheriff. There'll be signage, they'll get with the sheriff.
Right.
We're gonna have some security, or Craig's working on security cameras for that area as well. So that can be addressed.
Okay.
But for what we're talking about here on this supplemental agreement with AECom, it's just basically with them moving forward with the project.
Yeah. Shouldn't be a problem with that.
All right?
And I would think that if we could, if it's an issue as far as if Bradford County is concerned about that, that's something that this discussion could be had with them. And said, you know, this is the reasons why we're saying this, if this can remain in place, continue this other, you know, and this is the reasons why, then I would imagine that's at least a reasonable.
One other thought I had, and somehow I seem to already have known this. I thought we discussed this, and it was known that it would just be emergency access, but maybe it wasn't discussed here. I don't know where I heard it. But with that said, the Jeep event's a good example. Our 80th anniversary was a good example. One of the problems we have is when we have any event out here, we've only got one lane in and one lane out. I don't know if once they get it paved and connected, if Mr. Cornegay can go back to the powers that be with DOT and ask if we can use that thing on special events, because if you did that, you could have the event traffic come in that way, and you could leave Airport Road open, and you could have one as an exit and one as an entrance.
Yeah.
We'd have to find out.
Just depends on the occasion, I think, yeah.
We can address that later. What we want to focus on here, are we going to approve the supplemental agreement?
Well, that's why I'm saying I think we should do it for those reasons.
Okay, well,
That's just,
so what we need is,
So what we're voting on is to go ahead and
with the fence.
fit with the fence, the funding for the
gate,
fence is what we're
right.
voting on.
well, the funding is already there. What we're voting on here is it's a supplemental agreement that we have with AECom, our engineer of record,
Right.
that will oversee the project and from the design phase all the way to completion. All right, so do I hear a motion to approve
Yes,
supplemental
I'd like to
agreement
make
number 27?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to accept supplemental agreement number 27 for the West Side Connector Road fencing project.
A second.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, thank you. Get back up here to the agenda. Moving on to, I mentioned about the change order. We'll table that until next month's meeting so that Mr. Prane can be present to bring us up to date on that and all of the information. So that will be a done project as well. Ms. Whitney's not with us tonight, so we'll move on down to my two items. One of the things that we need to have the board approve tonight is a resolution, and the resolution is very similar to the ones that we've done previously where we were adding new board members to be a signatory with Ameris Bank. And in the case where Mike Sherbach had resigned or retired, and Maria, we had removed those by resolution as well. So that's what the document was in your packet. And so I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2024-6. And I'll read it by title: a resolution of the Keystone Heights Airport Authority designating persons who are authorized to sign checks, drafts, and other evidences of indebtedness and transfer funds between accounts in the name of the Keystone Heights Airport Authority, providing for revocation of authority and providing an effective date. And the designated authorized person listed on this resolution is Ms. Terry Hall, city seat number 1, Keystone Heights Airport Authority.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ludwig. All right. Any other discussion, questions about the resolution? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, thank you very much. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, item number 2. With our revised bylaws, one of the changes that was implemented was to have the chairperson and vice chairperson, those two officers, voted on in this meeting, the May meeting. This term is for 1 year, and so each May, continuing from here on forward, then this is an action that our board needs to take care of per our bylaws. So with that information, what I'll do is I'll open the floor for nominations for, I think I'll start with the vice chair first. So do I hear a nomination for vice chair position?
I would like to make a nomination, but I would also like to kind of give like a precursor to that. I think it's very important for us, and the fact that we have that in our bylaws, that I think it's something that we should exercise. There's many municipal governments, examples of boards and councils throughout the nation, and, you know, and when you have these type of organizations, I think it's important with leadership roles that from time to time, that you do exercise this and have that ability to give each and everyone an opportunity to be able to spend time in a leadership role if they choose to. So for me, my belief is, I believe it would be healthy, and it helps to keep us strong and bring in new ideas. And this by no means reflects on anyone doing, a negative, or anything to that effect of a job in that position. I just believe it's healthy that we all take that opportunity to be able to utilize that, to get some experience in those leadership roles, and also to be able to provide contributions. And with that being said, I would like to nominate Mr. Seamer if he would be willing to step up into the vice chair position. And for me, I think over the last year, I would like to publicly just say I commend him for his efforts that I've witnessed for the last year, and seeing the effort that he's put into learning a new role that he did as the resource management. He voluntarily, it was asked of him by the chair when I first came onto the board a year ago. He was originally in my chair position, and he voluntarily moved over into the natural resource position, which was a completely new field for him. And I appreciate the fact that you did that and were willing to allow me to do the safety and security with my background. And then after spending the time that you have to get yourself up to speed, and I know that's a challenging area, especially when it's completely foreign to you, and to see what he was able to do here within this last year, and then to voluntarily step aside as Ms. Hall came onto the board with her experience. So I commend that, and I appreciate it. And if you're willing to accept the vice chair nomination, I'd be willing to nominate you for that.
All right.
Okay, now,
According to Robert's Rules of Order, the chair calls for nominations from the floor. So is there another nomination?
I'd like to nominate Mr. David Dagenais,
All right,
if he'll accept it.
all right. All right, so any other nominations? Do I hear any other nominations? All right, according to this, if there's no further nominations, then the nominations are closed, so we need to take a vote. All in favor of Mr. Seamer serving, please vote aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, all right, all opposed?
Aye.
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 So we have a tie.
Okay.
So, in the event of a tie, according to our bylaws, I got with Mr. Taylor on this just to be prepared. And this is what he writes, that there is no express mechanism in the bylaws for breaking a tie vote. And sometimes organizations' bylaws provide that the chair votes only when his or her vote will affect the result. we changed that last year, actually, to where we clarified that the chair does vote. Doesn't just withhold until there's a tie vote. So this particular section doesn't apply. But if we look at, I'll just read to you what Mr. Taylor wrote. He said, Article 2, Section 4, you should have these on your laptop if you want to flip over to the bylaws. Article 2, Section 4 defines the chairperson and vice chairperson as the airport's officer. Section 5 of Article 2 provides that the officers, quote, shall hold office for a period of time as specified in Section 6 and 7 and/or until their successors are elected and have assumed office. So he also notes that with respect to a vacancy, well, I'll just read what he says. He said, I also note that Article 2, Section 9 provides for the Keystone Heights City Council to fill vacancies that, quote, occur in the Keystone Heights Airport Authority due to death, resignation, or removal. And that's per the city charter, Article 11, Section 38. Section 9 does not apply here, though, because 1, we are not here concerned with a death, resignation, or removal, and 2, Section 9 is limited to a vacancy in the board's membership, not in its officers. So we're dealing strictly with the officers. Concerning the latter point, it is relative to note that the cited section of the city charter provides only for the city council's appointment of the board members and not its officers. He closes this with, based on the above, I read the bylaws, and in particular Article 2, Section 5, as providing that in the absence of a majority vote electing a chair and vice chair, the incumbent chair and vice chair continue in the office until there is a majority vote. Now, this gets us back to the importance of our new city seat 5. And unfortunately, with the way the referendum was written, that seat doesn't get filled until January 1st. Based on that information, with a tie, then, well, let me stop. We've had one vote for Mr. Seamer. I need to do this. We need to have another vote for Mr. Dagenet. So all in favor of Mr. Dagenet, vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. And oppose.
Aye.
So we have a tie. So given the situation, and given that we don't have that the National Guard can vote anymore, thank you, Major, for showing up here tonight, not putting you on the spot, because we know you guys have been given orders. So based on that, guys, and from what our attorney has told us, we don't have a majority vote. So these positions, that position then falls, as he mentioned here, it stays as is until we have a majority vote for our bylaws.
Does that mean that every month we renominate and revote?
Would there be a need to?
I don't know.
No, it just means that, as he said, if there is not a majority vote, then it just remains with the incumbent in that position.
Right, and I'm not denying that. I'm asking for clarification. Are we just going to wait until January when the referendum goes through?
Well, the referendum's already passed. The voters passed the referendum.
Well,
Referendum verbiage stated that the
Right.
position doesn't come into effect until January 1, 2025.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
So you're saying that we're not going to do anything else, that Mr. Fryer's going to stay, and we're just going to wait and hold a vote on the first meeting in January,
I think
2025.
I think that's where we're at.
Okay.
Our bylaws state about May being the month that we do this, so we're doing it. And
Right.
because of the tie, then our bylaws say that we have to wait until we get a majority of the vote. It appears that we probably wouldn't get a majority if we voted for the next 6 months. And
I was asking for clarification.
yeah, so that's my understanding. It ties back to that majority vote
Right.
requirement from the bylaws. So sounds like we're not going to get there until we get our 7th or city seat number 5 person.
Would this require a motion be made to hold the vote then in January after that seat is filled?
I think that would probably be something that we would certainly have on the agenda when that new person is appointed.
Okay.
But, well, I think that, so let me clarify that. Our bylaws do state that this election takes place in May.
Right,
So I don't know if that means we wait until
the following May.
the following May to do that. So how about if I get with Mr. Taylor for just some clarification on that, because technically our bylaws, as he mentioned, don't address a tie situation since we resolved the issue about the chairperson, whether they vote or not. And the bylaws were amended to reflect what that new state is. So let me take it back to Mr. Taylor for his comment, and I'll report back to the board.
The other problem you could have with voting every month is if you weren't here 1 month, we've got 3-3, or if you weren't here, then it could be carried over. So it'd probably be better to wait until January when you do have a
Well,
tiebreaker.
as written, it just, as it's currently written, it seems that the vote is done in May, and what the results are of the vote in May carries till the next May.
Well, I'm just
That's what
stating
it
though,
seems.
it could go either way if we were doing it every month, you know? There could be a strategy involved, you know, saying like, well, you don't come in.
That just doesn't
you know
make
what I'm saying?
sense.
No, but I'm saying, I wouldn't see where you take it every month unless somebody had a change of heart.
Okay, I think we've got that resolved. All right, so that takes care of the vice chair. Now, I will open the floor for nominations for chairperson.
I would like to nominate Mr. David Kirkland again.
All right,
And
any other nominations?
I would like to, and on the same note of what I had my precursor to the previous position there for vice chair, I think, again, in the natural movement of things here, I believe that I would like to nominate Mr. Fryer if he chose, if
I
he
can't.
chooses
He can't
to move.
I'm the Clay County seat. I can never be chair.
The Bradford seat and the Clay County seat by city charter cannot hold the chair position.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't.
And that makes.
And I would
sense.
decline. Thank you.
And that is
But
right.
I would
And I was just thinking of the natural progression of things is
Yeah.
going from that role to the next.
Right.
So, okay, but that, and yes, it does state that,
Yeah.
so that's.
So I have one comment, I'll share this with the board. I have 2 years left on my present term. At this time, my plans are not to reapply. I've been on the board since '09. And it's been an honor to serve and to serve the city. So I would like to say I would be agreeable to serve this year, but I would definitely not accept a nomination for my last year for the very reason that you mentioned earlier. I think that although we're all involved with everything that goes on, I think it's just better that you have a new chairperson, and then I could still be here to assist in any way that I could.
Some level of change.
So I just wanted to share that with the board. It's been a educating and real learning process to work with the city council and with the city managers that we've had and Bradford County, Clay County managers, that position as chair is very involved. It requires a lot of time. And Craig and I spent a lot of time together preparing items for this meeting and meeting with individuals that are interested in coming to the airport, being a part of the airport. So I did want to be transparent with the board up front about my tenure. And so with that said, are there any other nominations for chairperson? Y'all sure?
Well, let me say this real quick.
All right.
The chairman has to do all the things you do, the vice chair just has to mow. It's a no-brainer.
Well, the bylaws don't say it that way.
Right,
There's a little more to it than that.
right.
All right, so given that I'm the only nominee, according to Robert's rules, if only one candidate has been nominated for an office, the chair simply declares the nomination elected. So the nominee elected. So, all right, moving on. Moving forward, airfield updates, Mr. Fryer.
I don't have anything this month.
All right, wow,
Yeah, shocker, huh?
goodness. All right, Mr. Ludwig.
Get organized here for a second. First item that I have on mine is, find where I'm at here.
First responders.
Yeah, updated airport information.
Okay, here we are. I don't know why I keep looking past it. All right, providing updated information, airport information to first responders. Mr. Kuhn and I have been working on doing some updates with the most recent security plan, with some of the changes with the changing in staff and all, we're having to go in and do some new changes and all. And I think prior to doing that, they had been working on getting some more updated maps, some of the layouts of the airfield and all. And at this point, I want to be able to move forward with trying to provide some of those updated maps to the first responders. And this is something that we have been discussing, or we would normally discuss, but I also just wanted to run it in front of the board just to make sure if there's anything that I'm not thinking of or whatever, because even though this is kind of considered like security information because it's contained within that, it does list in there that has a list of people that the security plan can be distributed to, and first responders and sheriff's office are included in that. So before I made any moves of providing any of our information outside of here, I just wanted to run it by the board and make sure that that's okay to do that, and make sure I'm not creating any issues with that. And that's kind of where I'm at on that. I don't know if we can have any discussion on that for a second, if there's any that needs to be done. But basically, we'd just like to provide them with maps of the area. So, and they will, more than likely, from whatever had been done in the past, they will have some information. I would just like to provide them with the updated information and kind of what I'm looking at. Inside Mr. Cornelius' office there, there's a pretty large map that's a wall map kind of sort of, that's things are blown up enough where you can see it. And I know just for me as a first responder that in our stations, when we have specific areas that are like either industrial parks or airfields or things like that, those are certain things that we have sometimes on our walls, and it's nice to have that extra reference that's there on the wall for training purposes, and also for kind of just for ease of reading. And then I would like to be able to get smaller, more notebook-sized maps of that same map for them to provide to them to put in their map books, because each responding equipment, whether it be fire apparatus or rescue apparatus, we carry notebooks, called map books, and have that type of information, so it's a reference guide as you're responding that you can look on there and you have that, And I know with the new computer systems with GIS mapping and stuff, they may have some of that information there as well, but it's always nice to have a hard copy. So that's kind of what I'm looking at doing,
Since
is
you asked the
providing that.
question, My question to that is this being looked at distributing specifically to the nearby fire stations, the nearby, we call it sheriff substations?
Yeah, what I would do is coordinate, as far as the sheriff office goes, what I would do is coordinate with the highest ranking sheriff's officer, their positions, and coordinate through them, because for them, it's a little bit different. And it may be something as simple as providing a link with a PDF electronic link that they can install and have on their computer. So when they come out, they pull it up on their computer. The equipment that the fire department has, they may not have that same type of equipment, and if they do, that's easy enough. We can provide that link to where they can do it. I know for where I'm at, we don't have that. You know, we do have hard copies of things. We do have GIS mapping up where we are, so, but there may be information that's not on that GIS mapping that would be pertinent, that the hard copy would provide. So as far as the Keystone Fire Station, and then the one right here, the immediate one here in Theresa, providing the hard copy maps in a notebook formatted size, and then the wall map would be a start, if everybody's agreeable to that.
Well,
Or
that would be reasonable, sure.
So I'd ask, when we first started talking about this several months back, when John Ward was the emergency management coordinator for Clay, one of the things that he and Maria had worked on was developing, I guess, a GIS, whatever their system
That's
is
probably
in the county. One of the things, and that's how these gates actually got numbered, was because an incident that occurred at the firm. There was a fatality over there. And they had resources from both Bradford and Clay County responding, Florida Highway Patrol. So that was the stimulus to get something better than what we had. So I know that she had provided that to John for Clay County. And I think he distributed that throughout that, all of the people, whether it's sheriffs or whether it was fire rescue, so that all of that was in their database. But I agree with you. I think there's probably stuff that's changed. That's been 5 years ago, probably 6 years ago. So there probably needs to be some updates to that. Would you also include all the emergency management directors? I mean, Bradford County, Clay County?
yes, yeah, I can do that if that's what, and again, that's why I want to bring this in front of the board, if that's what they would, would like to have that information. I just want to make sure before I start going and distributing, and I do not mind, I know something that would, in some situations, it would be normally the task of like the airport manager, because I'm in the role that I am, and then having that, and having those contacts that I'm trying to build that relationship with, I have no problem moving forward and doing that, as long as it's okay with everybody.
I think it should be a coordinated effort, because obviously the first point of contact is going to be the airport manager.
Right.
We might want to include Camp Landing, and I'm not sure which position out there would see that information as being a resource to them as well. We're close neighbors, we share fences and boundaries, so, and of course they come through Governor's Road. So I think we definitely need to make sure they're included as well.
But as far as those types of maps, is that okay? Is that agreeable as far as providing that? Okay, and again, I
have paper copies of that map you're referring to in Rob's office. I think Bill got us 5 maybe, so I would probably be able right now to get you 2 or 3 maybe.
Okay, and the thing is, like, when I first came on this board, that when I was given the security plan to kind of start, to have as a reference guide, the map that I was able to get a map, the one that's contained in there in this size, it's like you can't read the small print where it gives the key basically on the side that says building, number 9 represented on the map is this hangar or this building, you know what I'm saying? So that's the biggest thing, is having it to where, and I know those people working at those stations are probably a lot younger than me and have young, healthy eyes, but, I'm like, okay, yeah, we got to be able to format this thing. So if those that you're talking about, the updated ones, and that's what I'm hoping. And if not, if we have to do some reformatting, and that's the other question I was going to ask, is that something that we can go to a printing company with that, or, right, well, and there is other companies, I know that in Keystone, there may be in other places, but being able to, where they know how to manipulate and change size and font on things without destroying or taking
Well,
away.
that's a vector diagram, so no matter what size you make it, it stays to scale.
Okay.
Essentially.
Yeah, so, and if Bill's able to provide that in what we need on, that's perfect, because it's all staying within,
Okay.
and we don't have to worry about outside information.
Talk to him, sure.
Okay, but, and along those lines, with the maps, the next thing would be, is like gate codes. And again, some of them may be, already have that, and it's something that like we're provided as far as in my current job now, you know, and again, it's a security information, but because they are listed as organizations, allowable in the security plan, and making sure that that's okay to do that as well. So with the maps and then the security gate.
Yeah, I think they've got to have a code. I know we have a Knox box.
Yep.
Yes.
That's for the buildings, though.
This, well.
There's one for the
so,
gates too.
yeah. Well, my question is that information included in what you have?
And that's another one of the items that I was going to cover as well, because I had brought up in one of the previous meetings about switching from the current gate that where the Knox box keys are over there where it has a Bradford and a clay key for the old, and I had brought up the question, if anybody could tell me why that gate was the kind of preferred emergency response gate. And we all came to the conclusion that it was probably because of the old FBO when it was there before this building existed. This is a natural, you know, this one right here is perfect. You know, this one should be, I believe, and then I believe we all discussed and everybody seemed to be in agreement that this should be our primary emergency response gate. And is everybody still okay with that as far as that goes?
Well, I think
because
all
this one is
gates-
wide open and this one is right here
All
is
the
the
gates
first
have
one.
the same PIN code.
Yeah,
The only exception is some of them you have to use a pound sign either before or after.
yeah.
But we were gonna try to get those standardized. But are you saying the Knox box has a key for that one over there? You can actually turn a key and it'll open the gate?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
And this is where,
One more thing real quick, because you're talking fast. I have to get in here. I'm like, take a breath, take a breath.
I do that, I'm sorry, I do.
Do most counties now, do their fire apparatus have a laptop in each one of them? Is that pretty much standard, do you think? Or maybe more than less, the majority would
I
have them?
would say yes, potentially, when you're dealing with the rule. And again, I have not been up close and personal other than introducing myself to the closest ones by us. So as I begin this process, because I want to start moving forward now with some of the things I had discussed in the previous year, of getting some orientation and different things, from this point forward, once I have permission from the board to go ahead and start passing out information and doing those things, that's where I plan on trying to get a little more personable with them and finding out exactly what kind of equipment.
Well, here's the reason I say that. Why don't you go global? There's nothing proprietary out here about where our fuel tanks are at or where the runway is. Why don't you make it where all of Clay County that have electronic devices have the PDF at each station?
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, normally with a small GA airplane, you're going to have this station respond, maybe assistance from Bradford. If one of these P3s goes down, you may have Middleburg, you may have Camp Landing. Why don't you just have it in all of them?
Well, what I can do is I can provide that information to the contacts for each of those counties and let them decide if that's what they want to do. Yeah, because I can't just go.
Yeah, give it.
No,
that's
I
why I'm
wouldn't tell them
asking-
they have to do
that's
it,
why
but I'm saying
asking
share it
about
with all of them.
Whether it's emergency management, sheriff, county manager, and then whoever they want to disseminate that to, then that's their call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just saying, as far as our immediate stations that are right here, the closest two that are going to be on top of us fast, is providing that information to the higher ups, like you're saying, and let them distribute it however they want, but also having the permission from them, because before I would do this, I would contact them anyways and say, hey, I have hard copy maps and wall maps and gate codes I would like to provide to your two closest stations, and here's the information. If you choose to put this within your department, it's okay, you know, we've discussed it, and if you want to do that, here's the information for you.
I'm just saying if they had a PDF that it can just pop up on their laptops or whatever's in the engine, everybody to have it.
Right,
And
right.
somebody who's not even familiar with the airport, once they find it, they can say, oh, here's all the gates or
Right,
whatever.
and that's what I can do. I can provide that information. I just also want to be able to get more copies that won't be on a computer that's sitting at a station and make sure that the board is okay, that that information is there, because that's when it goes out into the public, you know what I mean? And just like at our fire station where I work at, we have that type of information, and the public does walk through from time to time, but we don't allow people to walk in there taking pictures of the wall and different things like that. So just making sure that everybody's on, okay with that.
And that will be digital and hard copy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Do tenants need to know? Is there information in there that would be beneficial to tenants?
That part, I don't know necessarily for tenants at this point. One of the other projects we were working on was that internal emergency response plan. And at that point that is taken care of and shored up, what we plan on doing at that point, and again, this is something that I do not mind doing with help there with Craig, but I do not mind taking the lead on this, is doing a class for our employees, board members or employees in the event of different things. That's what that would cover, how we handle it in-house. And with that, we could also invite tenants in to whatever, so they have an idea, because again, one of the things we discussed before, if somebody back there in the A hangars back that way, or somebody, they're having an issue, how for them to report it correctly, so the fire department just doesn't show up right here and we're like, well, we're at the airport. They said they were at the airport, and then everybody's trying to figure out, we don't know. We wouldn't know, Craig wouldn't know, or anybody, or, that somebody back there is having a heart attack, so to be able to educate the tenants also, I think is extremely important on that type of information, saying, hey, if you're calling 911, give them specifics, tell them where you're at, tell them if you're in hangar A or you're in hangar C or wherever, so that way they can get to you. Because that's the problem with airfields. So we experience that where I work at now, and I've experienced that at other airports, because people call in, or they'll call their security office, like in our situation where I currently work, Boeing has several hangars out there. Well, Boeing also has security, and what happens is their policy is if somebody's having an issue down in this area, they're supposed to call security, and then security calls 911. Well, then that's the address that comes in, is that security office, and that could be the farthest place in the world from where the actual incident is. Or if that person ended up just calling 911, then the information is just coming in that it's, in a specific area that may not be listed in the system. So it does create some confusion. And being able to educate some of the tenants, would be helpful into trying to eliminate it, because there's so many different areas out here that they could potentially go, unless somebody's specific. So, and that's the biggest thing, is there's a lot that happens beyond that gate in that direction on a daily basis, and naturally the first place they're going to come, if they say, hey, somebody's having a heart attack at the airport, they're going to come right up here. This is the first big facility they see, and they'll come marching in here.
Unless they know to go somewhere specific.
Right, they'll come marching in here with all their equipment, and the cavalry.
Well, your next subject is emergency access signs. I'd like to add something to that, and this is another. So, your history with the fire service, but I worked in a major power plant. We had a procedure there. We actually called the control room. And the reason they did that is because those were people that were familiar with where everything was at, and the control room would call rescue, or they would make that determination. Now, I'm not saying people out here can't call 911, but it might not hurt to put on some buildings down there. If you call the fire department, as soon as you get off, or get someone else to call the airport manager's office and let them know.
Yeah.
Because if Craig's in here or Rob's in and they see the fire truck go by or an ambulance and they're lost.
Right.
But if they let Craig know where he can get somebody out on the street, say, follow me, we'll get you back there. And we've done that.
Right,
They've had car wrecks over there. We've gone and waited down here at the firm's gate and led them in to where the incident was to assist the firm.
Yeah.
So
And
if you do some signage, maybe consider putting those on the end of the T
Yeah,
hangers.
and if we, if we can do that, and that would be part of that, also educating the tenants type thing. But yeah, if that's something that we can purchase signs like that, that would be helpful as well, as a reminder. And the thing is too, in those moments, people are in panic mode. and they're not thinking clearly and all, and so that may or may not necessarily always happen, that they'll call 911, then turn right around and call
It
up
won't,
here.
but it'll
Yeah. But it's
expedite
nice to at least have that information, and we've
service
talked to
getting
them, and we've at least done everything we can on our end to say, hey, this would help
Right.
expedite things if you do this. So, yes, I think that's great if we can. And as far as the signs that I was talking about here, I think one time, we had talked about that when we were talking about this gate, especially as units coming in this way, having a sign essentially right here on Airport Road, directly right across from this gate right here, that it's facing the approaching apparatus. Because what you have in these situations with fire departments is people promote, people leave and go to other departments, so you have new people that come in. So the crews that we may talk to, in whenever we do, 6 months or 2 months or whatever down the road, it could be completely different people. So that's one of those things that's right there in your face as you're approaching up. And then you see there, that's the primary, airfield access or whatever a red sign with white lettering, that catches the attention. And then the second one right there on the gate, the primary emergency airfield access or something, or we can limit it down if they charge by letter or whatever, but something that grabs the attention at least for the airfield access, and ingraining this as being the primary airfield access gate, and to go back to that first
For
bullet point.
emergency responders.
For emergency responders trying to get out onto that airfield. If there's an incident out there and the plane has crashed, getting them in, they know they come, as soon as they come down the road, they see that red sign. And if it's a new person working at that station that normally works at a station over in a different part of the county and they're there for the day and everybody's off because it's a holiday, then at least that's in your face. You know what I mean? So
would we look at, or maybe talk to DOT about what their standard sign might be for?
yeah, and I don't know if there's a standard sign. That's one of those things. I know, like where I work at now currently, I think they have a sign shop that they utilize, the signs that they've installed around the airfield. I don't necessarily know that those are DOT signs. I think those are just more in-house sign shop, and they're able to produce them. So I don't know that we have to have anything official like that, or anything going through DOT. It's just a matter of if it's okay and what, and then I can work with Craig as far as the budget on that. And again, we're not going sign crazy, just at least for that, as far as emergency airfield access, is having the one facing Airport Road, facing down that way, and then the other one on that gate. And as we move forward, providing the information to the first responders and doing the orientation class, all the people will start seeing that and knowing that that's their primary, and just trying to ingrain that in their head. And there's the reminders right there facing them. And to go back for just a second on the Knox box keys.
Yes, thank you, because I was going to go back there.
Yeah.
We
Now-
left that.
Now, that gate down there, it looks like all that is wired in the way that the Knox box keys, from my understanding. I've not utilized that yet, so that's another thing that I would like to be able to, try and see, is because my understanding, what I'm thinking potentially with these electronic gates like that, is that you put that key goes in there, and when you turn that key, that should open that gate electronically. Now, then we get into the discussion of, well, if there's a power failure and those kind of things and all that, but I'm not going to kind of get too far off on that.
Actually, there's battery backups on.
Okay, so we have that, okay.
Yeah.
So my thing was going to say, as far as for budgetary reasons, I don't know how cost effective or what kind of a hit that would put on us to go and basically pull all of that up, to bring it over and have it rewired in on this side, or say this would be primary gate number 1, and that's backup gate number 2 with Knox box keys, in case for some reason they can't get into this gate. And it doesn't cost anything. Either that, I'm just saying, as far as if we're trying to save, either that or just if we're trying to save money or whatever, but.
He's got authority up to, what is it, $5,000?
Yeah,
Just get with him. That'd be my opinion as a board member.
I agree.
You're making this thing global. And
Yeah,
your
no,
sign over there,
it's the biggest.
I would agree, we talked about that. I would put EMS, PD, sheriff, emergency access, big arrow. Make it
Right,
simple.
simple, right.
And big.
Yeah.
And he can use Showcase up there is who we've used, and also Mike Schurbach's wife now does signs. She's done a lot of the lettering. She does good, and she does it for less.
Yeah.
I think.
It's got to be an exterior sign, and
Right.
here's where I want to go back with DOT. Not only is maybe the verbiage and graphics that they may already have, we need something that's durable and windstorm,
Right.
hurricane.
Right.
we don't want to just stick something out here on a 4x4.
He can put it on metal up there.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is, it's an important sign, and we want to make sure that we do it right. When we do it, that we do it right.
Right.
That's where I was going with that.
Yeah, and that's what we have in place for metal signs, the metal poles, metal signs, and then the signs that are on the fences are actually metal, and they're attached to the fences, secured, four corners and all, so.
And I think that's another thing, you mentioned about the sign here, but I think you ought to have a sign on that gate.
Yeah, that's what I said, one facing down the road and then the other one on the gate, that basically say the same thing.
Definitely.
Yeah, and again, as far as the other, I'm not trying to make it global, it's just that I don't want to, I know we're on a limited budget on things, and I don't want to come in and be like, well, this guy's wanting to spend all of our money, you know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to help, trying to facilitate where I'm not getting too crazy with the money side of it. And, at least in the situation now, you have one, they have a code and they can get in. If for whatever reason there's an issue, they have a Knox box gate over here as a backup gate that's already in place. We're not spending any extra money.
Well, how much
that
is a
part.
life worth?
Well, I agree.
So if it's within his budget and he thinks, this is just my personal opinion, just do it with him. Just, and if it's not, then get bids or estimates and come back to the board.
Right.
Would that work?
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that we can, and we've discussed and had these things again. I'm just trying to be at least transparent. So the board, if there's any ideas, things that I'm not thinking, I appreciate everybody's contribution. So that's kind of why I'm doing this. And as far as the basically, we kind of pretty much covered all of that because we covered it with providing the information, the gate codes, the backup emergency gate, and the gate signs. So that pretty much covers all of that. And then the last thing is group notification. And pretty much on that, I don't know could y'all be able to describe to me kind of what had been in place before? Say, for instance, there was an incident tonight and nobody's here. The airport's, business hours are over. How was that going? How would that go down as far as phone calls going out? Or how would that happen? How would you guys get notified with whatever has been in place right now? Who would call you?
I think the fire department has it on file who the airport manager is. Now, whether that's been updated, but that would be
Right,
their first
and that's the other
contact.
thing is, because I want to have to change,
And
make sure that
then the
information.
chair would be the next person.
Okay,
I think it'd be a point of contact. I don't have an issue with then Craig, in turn, or the airport manager, then notifying all the board members, the city, obviously city manager, they need to be in that loop as well.
yeah.
Just
And-
makes sense.
And what I wanted to run by the board is just making sure that we could do it in two forms. And a mass email out like what Craig's been doing, where it's kind of keeping us up to speed on things that are happening, as well as like if we could do like a rapid text, like, and basically would be that, obviously the fire department, would call the manager, and then him and Rob they're, at least it starts to go from there. The airport manager, airfield manager, and if you want it to be the chair, the vice chair, and then the security chair, as far as a text going out. So that way, and from that point forward, if we got to come in and pull resources from whatever else, there's enough of us here that are able to start, okay, you handle this task, you handle this task, and y'all notify. But is that everybody okay with as far as that order goes?
Sounds good to me.
It's a text going out to the chair, the vice chair, and the air.
Yeah, he could even create a group text on his phone, I suppose, now. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but remember now, if there's an incident out here, we have one person that speaks to the media, because you got to be really careful what you say, and I believe that goes to the chair.
Right.
And we have a media policy that's in the laptops as well,
Yeah.
as to what that protocol is and, what is said.
Yeah, and that's the way that I operate in my world. We can't, as individuals, we can't. We have a PIO is what they call that, Public Information Officer. So yes, that's natural, as far as you don't have to, tell me on that. I'm familiar with that. So yes, I totally agree, because you can't have everybody giving their 2 cents worth. It needs to be a point person.
Yeah.
But as far as the other going out, if we can have a text that goes out and I don't know, some of the places, the businesses that we respond to, also have some type of a decal out front in case of emergency. Then it'll have like the airport manager's phone number or whatever, the primary, that person's number. And then it's kind of like us when we have to call if there's a fire alarm or something going off at a building. We call usually who's the manager of that facility is the name that's listed first. So if providing that as far, and then him being able to then send out that, that text to us. And if we have to handle the email that goes out later to everybody else, if that's just one run by the board, just make sure everybody's okay with that. Just making sure we notify.
Sounds logical to me.
I brought this up years ago, and I don't know where it got lost, but can you look into getting an AED for this building?
Yeah.
I got one before I left Seminole, and the AED doesn't cost that much, but the annual inspection, get some numbers on what they charge, because they come and check the battery condition, the expiration of it, if they put it through a test. That may get a little expensive, but it might, I don't think it was that bad. I think it was like $300 or $350 a year to come inspect it, but we need one. We're remote.
Let me ask you this, if you had done that before, do you recall, because this is, I have thought about that before, because a lot of public places, but sometimes also what comes with that, and I don't know, I've never been through this process, because we're all trained, you know what I'm saying? They'll give them to us and we have them, we carry whatever. But as far as that for the public, do you remember if that also involved training before that they could bring that? Because I don't know if they just bring them and say, okay, here you go, it's
They gave
self-explanatory,
us a
or do
brief
they do
training thing, and it was very simple. I mean,
Yeah,
this
they are.
even had an audio voice that told you, place pads at these
Step by
points.
step thing.
Yeah.
Now, is patient breathing, or, you know, and it just tells you. But I just think we need one, and I did, gosh, it's been many years ago, and I don't know what happened. It slipped through the cracks. But
If I recall, I think when we originally looked at them, they were cost prohibitive at the time. I think they're cheaper now because
Yeah.
they're
I
more
think the
prevalent.
one we paid was,
Yeah.
It's got cheaper.
I think the one I bought at Seminole was like $1,800 or something. And maybe that was expensive for back then.
And that would be the thing, I'll look into
you could just
that
check in.
and find out as far as training wise goes, what's involved with training, because again, that's something that would be possibly required, so, but yes, I agree, I think that's a good idea. So I believe that's all I have there.
Thank you, Mr. Ludwig. Mr. Steamer?
Well, let's start off with the weapons transfer, since I am no longer the conservation person and will no longer be riding out in the woods. I know that we had the talk when I first on to the conservation about me carrying a weapon inside the AOA. I talked to Craig, and he said he didn't think that for us being a GA, that we would have, we don't have TSA or anybody out here.
It's a category designation, correct?
Right.
Correct.
As far as our size of airport.
Right.
Right.
But it was brought up, you know, by Mr. Fryer saying if you have a concealed carry weapons permit, you still cannot carry inside the gate. And that's when I asked about, since I'm going to be out in the woods, and everybody agreed. I don't know.
I think I was talking real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it was talking about in general, like our tenants. I don't think they're allowed to carry them in. But it was my understanding, and I have nothing factual, I think Luke told me this. If we have like a coyote problem, any board member can come in, or we can hire somebody to hunt those nuisance animals that interfere with the airport operations. I don't think I meant that you couldn't bring it in, because I think you have brought it in, but I don't think the tenants are supposed to. Now,
Well, you had brought it up in the meeting that night.
right,
And said that even if you have a concealed carry weapons permit, you cannot carry your weapon inside the AOA. That was what you said.
that's what I'm pretty sure of.
So,
And so,
If you're hunting like with a rifle, a nuisance animal, that's not concealed.
all
I don't think
right, I think
anyway,
the answer.
I have a simple answer for us.
what's that?
So with anything, Florida statute, state law supersedes anything that a county may put as an ordinance or a municipality.
Right.
And that addresses your item 3. We'll get to that. So in discussing this with, I had a conversation with Rob Bradley this morning. I went to the Bradford County Commissioner meeting, and we talked about several things. With the fact that if you have a concealed carry permit, and the fact that this airport, because of its category, does not have the restrictions imposed by TSA or Homeland Security, whatever it may be.
Right.
It's my understanding that you can have that weapon because you have a concealed carry permit.
Right.
Okay.
All right? So that's That was eye-opening to me. It was good information, and it's common sense, when you think about it. Florida statute, the legislature has put that in place, so that's what we go off of. Talked to Gordon Smith about it. He said, David, he said, I'll look at ordinances and I'll consider what they are. He said, but as far as my office, it's state law. Whatever the state law is, that's what I adhere to. So I think that answers the question about whether or not Ms. Terry or whoever, if you have a concealed carry permit, then, you can have it when you're out in the woods. I mean, I'll be very transparent with you. I've walked around out in those woods and I've had my pistol on my hip because there are bears. He can't blame me to keep their bears over there. So anyway, I think that's.
But that's why I brought it up, was
Exactly.
just in case there was a misunderstanding or anything, that she would be able to take.
Correct.
But Frank is correct, since this is not a Part 139 airport, and the only one nearby was either Gainesville or Jacksonville International, where TSA is involved with the airport, then it would be revert, like you said, state law and airport policy.
So with respect, if you don't mind me addressing your item 3 about the Clay County Sheriff's Office having full authority, law enforcement authority, because of that ordinance, that's an old 1982 ordinance that probably the city needs to go back and address, because by state law, and I asked Gordon Smith too, if they had an interlocal agreement, and he confirmed that with Bradford, Clay, Alachua, and Putnam, they have an interlocal agreement between law enforcement so that their officers go into counties outside of their own to take care of any kind of law enforcement issue.
Okay.
So I think the city needs to go back and address that ordinance because it is very dated and it really doesn't comply with state law. Mayor, that's ordinance 82-136.
You got noted in?
It's noted. Mr. Senior noted that on the agenda, so it's something that.
I'll ask Steph to take a look at it for us.
Right. So, anyways, I think with the realization that state law precedes any other ordinance municipality that might put out, even in a home rule, because there's been a couple of cases that went to the state Supreme Court. And as a result, actually, the court ruled that it's state law. It takes precedent. So.
It's just something I happened to find, and I wanted to put it out.
Good.
By our ordinance, as the legislative liaison, I'm supposed to look at stuff, and that's what I did, and I found it.
So it's good to know you're not smuggling weapons. That's all.
I'm not smuggling no way.
When I saw the topic, I thought.
No, and I guess that was just the way that it got worded in there.
10-4.
The other thing was requesting a list of potential leases that are interested in leasing the property, that we're moving the gate and having this road and the subsection road put in. Do we have any?
We don't. And it's very similar to what any developer investment group that goes in and builds a subdivision. They don't know who's coming, but you got to build it so they will come, and we have to have the infrastructure in place to accommodate them. If we build a new set of T hangars, we don't know who those tenants are either.
Yeah, but we have a waiting list.
That's true. But my point is that we're spending a lot of my money, your money, everybody's money, because it's not free money like everybody thinks. That's our taxpayer money that's going into these projects. And I just hate seeing a lot of money being spent on a road to nowhere. It's not a road to nowhere. The road was put so that we could have access to that west side development area. That was the whole purpose for the EA, if you recall. That's what those hatched areas are.
I understand.
And so that we can then have an area that we can start developing.
Or advertising. When Ron Blake was on the,
Preparing that piece of ground.
Well, here's the biggest thing, guys. The reason that funding was approved from the Department of Economic Opportunity was for job growth. That's what all of the counties are looking for. In the majority of their projects, for any appropriations that you take to Tallahassee, if you can tie that back to job growth, you get a leg up, if you will, because you've provided a means and a resource or resources then for job growth. And that was the major factor with the DEO grant that Bradford County got. So we've got to have a way to get to that area, because before it was nothing but woods.
I have a question on that, if I'm
Sure.
interrupting. As far as that goes, as we move forward on that route, and if there are potential people coming in and looking in businesses, is that something that's going to come in front of the board and we're going to discuss as a board, or is that only one particular person's
No,
basically purview?
No, that'd be a board.
Like if we do have T-hanger, somebody comes in and want to build T-hangers or something like that, that's not going to go through either your role or just the airport manager, whatever, that they're going to come here to the meeting and present, and we're going to discuss that as a board to agree if this, in, just because of, as we move forward, and if that progresses like that, I would imagine that over at some point in time, it's going to draw some interest. Is that only going to go through the county manager, or is that only going to go through, or is it going to come in front of us?
Yeah, no, county manager's been helpful, and now Amber Shepherd with Northeast Florida Economic Development. She's been very active and already talking to people that might have an interest in moving out here. So our minimum standards, our operating standards, there's a whole section, there's chapter 2 in there that deals with commercial development and all of the requirements. And in each of those, what you'll see is that person or development group has to bring that request to the airport manager, and there's documents they have to fill out. All that gets brought before the board for review and approval.
Yeah. Well, and again, just because of some things in the past, I just want to make sure that as we're moving forward with this new venture, that we're not finding out after the fact, that all that information is coming up front, so we're all having that opportunity to kind of weigh our opinions and all be able to discuss, and that's kind of what I want to, and I would like to say on a side note, in the minimum standards thing, for the whole last year, I've not heard that word one time except for the last meeting and this meeting. So just for the record, that was not something that was ever made that I was ever made aware of. So, I'm having to play catch up now for that. And I think that as we move forward, along, and now that we have a new board member, that if there's something that there's kind of at least some guidance that can be given, because, the bylaws, like we brought up in the last meeting, yes, I knew about that but there was kind of in the transition mode, me coming in, and I don't know how much Mr. Seymour, he came in just before me, how much he was given, but there was minimal education, and we've had to play a lot of catch up throughout this last year. And like I say, that word's now come up twice, that term, and apparently there's a lot of information there that, I'm going to have to go backwards now and bring myself up, because that had never been mentioned by anyone.
determined that the bylaws are on your laptop
Yes.
and are minimum operating.
Yeah, I believe that they're there now
Yeah.
also, yeah.
So here's another thing.
And they're on the website.
There's a lot of business always going on in these meetings, and we could stay out here till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Unfortunately, we don't have a big staff. Then we lost the airport manager. We got a new airport manager. Nothing is being hidden from anyone.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's being hidden. What
But
I'm saying is that there was not a
If I can
guideline.
finish real
So
quick. Sometimes it sounds like you're saying, well, there's no transparency, and you want to be very transparent, and we do too. The other thing I'd say about these developments up here, we did a workshop like 4 or 5 years ago with Randy Andrews, has it been that long, or is that about right? Where we went through and classified the different properties for what zoning they would be, because it's my understanding, I think we control our own zoning in conjunction with the county they're in. So when he's telling you, you know, and I don't know what you mean by, you said something just a few minutes ago, you said, I didn't want it to be like it was before, so we're finding out after the fact.
Well, there's examples, and I don't want to go back and rehash those.
Right, no, I know.
Been
but-
examples over the past year that
But
we've
for
had these
instance,
discussions.
I think the board needs to be involved, because if somebody approaches this board about putting a liquor store inside there, I don't know how y'all are gonna vote, but I know how I'm gonna vote. And I got an idea, you're probably gonna vote the same way as me. Or a strip club or something that doesn't fit and it doesn't bring good things to our community. So are those zoning things, where is that listed at? Is that in the MOS?
No, the zoning was up to a point to where we had designated all the different zones in conjunction with, you know, Randy Andrews and also talking with Clay County. What we were waiting on is we had some questions, because we have to make sure it ties back to Florida Statute 333, which addresses airports, addresses clearances, addresses obstacles, a lot of different things, and there's some other regulation in there. And that's what the new Clay County zoning on airports, both public and non-public airports and heliports, is addressing. We had several questions that we submitted to Bradford County, and at the time, their county attorney was also wearing the hat of county manager, and they never got answered. So I actually spoke with Randy Andrews at the last commissioner meeting last Thursday of last month, and raised those questions. And he asked me, he said, David, how about sending me what, you know, you had sent to me before, and I'll get with Rich Commando and get an answer for you. So that's where the zoning part is. Because it had never been finished, because we were waiting on legal.
Wasn't there some group also from Gainesville that's like a tri-county or something, a group that will review it for free or?
So Bradford County was using a entity, I forget their name, slips my mind right now, to basically look over all the land use regulations, the LDRs, or land development regulations. So they were a separate entity for North Florida that would perform that service and then make recommendations on changes and whatever. I don't think Bradford County is using that entity any longer. I'm not sure who they're using, but that was a review, because the way this process would go is that we would come up with a draft. From that draft, we would run it by the city, and then we would run it by both Bradford and Clay counties for their input. And then in turn, this other entity then would also review those documents and make any recommendations for changes. Just to make sure everything, because they're looking at compliance issues with Florida statute, county
Environmental,
statutes.
all kind of things.
Right, so that was the process that we were in. And once we get that back, then we'll start that process again to where it comes back before the board for review here, and then we'll go out from there to the Clay County, Bradford County, and city, and wherever we have to go from there.
So the reason I brought that up is, I didn't want you to be blindsided, but it just came to my mind. It's not something that's been hidden from you. We worked on it years ago, and it's just it hadn't been completed.
It got tabled because legal didn't
And it was
respond.
complicated, you know, telling us, you know, him giving us guidance, what you can do here. You're near a lake there, you shouldn't. There's wetlands over here. So when you hear about
Are you
these,
talking about the minimum standards thing? Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm talking about the zoning for this airport. So you're going to hear about it later on, but it isn't because we're hiding it from you. It's just there's a lot of complexity here. So some of the things you find out are just matter of fact as they come up.
Well, and when I say that,
Oh,
though,
by the way,
in it,
I just found out a fella I know is on the new Clay County Airport Zoning Committee.
Okay.
So there's a resource we have to find out information on that.
Well, we're having good communication with Dodie Seelig with Clay County. She's the chief planner for planning and zoning. So
okay, good.
Craig and I have already had communications with her about the concerns we had with the zoning. And so that's moving forward as well.
So we're gonna move that whole perimeter fence there in 500 feet
Just the, well,
eventually, because eventually it's gonna get moved in?
Eventually.
Okay, I asked that last meeting and I was told, no, no, no. And now it is, yes, it's going to get moved.
You're talking about going along 100, not just the road access?
Right.
Well, I didn't know that either. We're not moving.
Well, how are you going to have any convenience store or any other thing that's going to be able to come into the AOA into the inner access road?
Eventually, that fence line would have to be moved. That's correct.
First.
I mean,
That's eventually.
I think I know what you're saying. It doesn't seem feasible if you're not going to move the fence back, how's somebody going to build? But it doesn't mean all these businesses are going to be forward facing to the highway. They may be, go over there to, behind Sonny's over there on Waldo Road, that industrial park back there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? It might be more like that. Now, that's a little confusing because that doesn't quite compare to us.
It doesn't, you're comparing apples and oranges.
But there is an industrial park.
Can I get back to my question?
Oh, certainly.
Thank you. My question is that, again, we're spending these monies to do things, and we don't have anybody. How do we know that 500 feet is going to be deep enough for a business?
it's not for a business, Rex. The 500 feet is to get that gate beyond the interconnect road.
Right, but you just said that you're going to move the whole fence
We're only,
on 100.
no, just the portion of the fence that's the
at the road.
width of the road right of way, the new access road.
I understand that's what that is. So you're saying at no time that the rest of the fencing on 100 is going to be moved?
That's correct.
Then what kind of businesses are we he was talking about a bar or something going in. How would they even
No, that's
be
not
able
what
to
I
get
said.
in there?
I said we would probably vote against that, is what I said. That was talking about the zoning.
Well, Scott, that's what I'm saying. If it's zoned for that, how are we going to manage it inside our AOA?
Well, eventually, I would imagine there's going to be a fence going down that current farm road to keep people from getting into the airfield proper, eventually. But you got to start
There's
somewhere.
a map right there if y'all want to be able to.
Yeah.
That's like a perfect map there, I think, to help.
I would think, Rex, eventually there's going to be a fence probably down here or something. Because if Rockland does build here, they can't have cars coming off the highway and going in there. But, and I misunderstood you too. I know you were talking about taking and going ahead and cutting this all down. But we're talking about right now just bringing the fence down here, putting the gate across and bringing the fence back. We're not going to disturb this along 100, and we may never. If it's an industrial park, there may be a need for a fence there. I don't know, just to keep the public from cutting across the ditch getting in there. We don't know what'll go in there, but let me ask you this.
Yeah, that's.
Why'd the
right.
city just buy the corner where the Chinese Walk is? They're not guaranteed yet that the DOT is gonna, I think it's the most brilliant thing I've seen in decades here in Keystone to get rid of that weird turn. But you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
And we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know who's gonna wanna come in, but what if some light industrial place, maybe a trailer manufacturer, like utility trailers where they weld them up, they might approach us and wanna put a little, manufacturing facility in there on some of the land. Another one may be some type of a warehouse where they do distribution. We don't know yet. Nobody knows.
So back to, and I agree with you, Rex, about taxpayer dollars, all right? I pay taxes, we all do. But when you look at $2.3 million is what that grant was for, the job growth grant for the new access road, and you add $200,000 that FDOT is going to give us to move the fence, put the new fence and new gate in. What is that? I mean, it's not a large sum of money in a multi-billion-dollar budget that we have for the state of Florida. Now, I don't say that justify it, but I'm saying too, that we have to have access so that we can develop that area.
I'd like to add a comment in reference to the corner, just to kind of relating to what y'all are talking about. You know, we have to, it's always gonna be the horse before the cart. And we have always wanted to do something with that corner, but we couldn't just say, okay, where are we gonna pay, how are we gonna pay for that, how can we buy that? When the DOT and TPO came in 2 years ago, they came in and occasionally they do studies. I think the first one was 2020 and they did another one in 2022. They sat on that corner for 3 solid days and counted cars and traffic events. It was way different result than what they saw in 2020. Had increased. So the traffic, the number of cars had increased. They had 71 accidents at that corner in 3 days. Okay?
71?
71 car situations.
Right.
Accidents, it's all in the document.
May have just been a slight bump or whatever, but
Yes. I was surprised too. That's why it caught there, all of a sudden FDOT goes, we got a problem. You know,
Right.
NASA, we got a problem. So, they saw that, I think 6 of them occurred between 3 and 6 PM or something like that, or 7. They realized the big problem with the turn, which is gonna add to safety concerns. It has caused some accidents. The way they have to make that wide turn, there's no space, right?
it's
So they
ridiculous.
came to us with a proposal. We didn't go to them, they came to us. Keystone, we want to fix this corner for you. We did this, it's an exhaustive study, okay? If you go and buy that real estate, we will come behind it under state funding.
And take
to
care of the
make it
rest.
safer,
Right.
Okay? So guess what? We had to find the money, $240,000 to purchase the corner. Fortunately, the owner was really very helpful with that. And we were able to buy it at a reasonable rate out of infrastructure, or out of CRA, community redevelopment money, which we have, which is also part of a grant that gets funded, again, our taxes, but again, this is a good benefit to our.
It's a win-win-win.
Right, it's a win-win for everybody. Plus, the beauty of it is, so they want to see us buy it. So I'm gonna look at Charlie right now. Okay, what's next? We go and we buy it, we get the demolition done. I don't want to sit vacant for a year.
And you get rid of an eyesore too.
Right. I want to know where we are on their list of priority, right?
Right.
Well, Charlie has already been in contact with them, and we are elevated in the priority. So these, like, you all bought it, that means we're invested, which means you're talking about a road, you're invested in the effort. You have the people who might be looking at doing something will be invested in considering. You know, because talk is cheap, right? So again, we bought it for that reason, and plus it's gonna be, it's gonna be beautiful, plus it's gonna add some parking and safe. So, once all that comes together, there's still things that have to be done, and we're still gonna have to spend a bit more money, but it's gonna be worth it to do it. So, and to answer to your question, Rex, you know, we have to walk before we run, and sometimes it means you gotta commit, and you gotta commit to a decision like this in order to get the opportunity to move forward with anything that might be down the road. That's kind of how that happened. But it is kind of similar to what you all are talking about.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, anything else, Mr. Seamer?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Hall, looking forward to your report.
Well, Rex was good enough to take me out, and I got to see the property, and it was very interesting. Have a lot of different kinds of property. I mean, we did see some gopher tortoises while we were out there.
No,
We
really?
did not see any bears. But yeah, it was very interesting. There's a variety of ecosystems out there. It was very interesting. So after we went through and we looked at all that, I contacted Carlton Scott, who's the Duval Clay County forester who worked with Rex to do the plan, and told him I wanted to discuss, you know, where are we on the tree farm designation. And so he provided to me a couple of different things. There's some standards that we have to meet. There's some eligibility requirements. But anyway, there's several different things. And the other thing that we have to do is I have scheduled an interview with him on the 4th. And that's part of the whole certification where I guess we're going to discuss the plan and everything. And then there's also a document that I'll fill out between now and then. And by filling out that document, he'll submit it with the plan. So moving forward on all of that. And looked over the plan, didn't know how familiar everybody was with it. I know we have somewhere around 1,200 acres of forested. I kind of broke it down with Rex's stuff, but we've got about 185 acres that is out of production. And y'all see, when you come in and everything, it's been cut. It's, that's something that's going to end up having to have something done to it. Then we've got 258 acres that are sort of like an unmanaged hardwood areas. They're areas that could be in pine production or not. And these would not be any of these that have been set aside, because there's a number of them that have been set aside as unique communities or whatever. And then the last thing is we've got about 533 acres of pine plantation. So I know there was discussion about 200 to 300 acres, and I think it was thinning, wasn't it? Because I know the plan mostly.
Thinning and the clear cutting.
Okay, so looking at that, I mean, because one thing on the clear cutting was, it's basically up to us. I mean, it's like anytime in the next 10 years when it meets whatever standards that you want to do or whatever. But, so anyway, I found it very interesting reading through it all, trying to still get, more information, going to talk some more with the county manager, county forester, and just really kind of understand where we are by looking at those standards so that we can get it. So what we would be doing is, he said that he would be following the path of recertification, not new certification. So I think that's probably something in our favor. So looking at that,
And what's the benefit of us being certified?
well, there's grant money.
That's always a good thing.
And the soils are perfect for longleaf. And that is always, the state is always pushing for putting longleaf out there. So I'm sure that there would be like a cost share, things like that. So I think all of that would be a benefit.
Excellent.
And let's see. I think that's pretty much it. So I'll find out some more from him as I go through the process. And like I said, I've got the June 4th call with him, the interview. And if there's any progress or anything that changes, whatever, I'll be sure and let the board know.
Very good.
Rex brought him in and
He did a good job.
is,
It's the first time we've had anybody put that effort and detail into our whole silviculture.
It was very comprehensive.
Yeah.
It was a great job, yeah.
Yeah.
I was amazed how you even broke down all the soils. You're going like, soil, no, like 15 different types.
Not out here.
Yeah, you got a lot of,
That's
got a
right.
lot,
Out here, it's very
a lot of good
unusual.
information from him.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Mr. Kuhn, give us an update on the fuel truck.
Yep, so the Atkinson auctioneer company came up from Bradenton, took pictures, took the title, but I was asking city attorney, Mr. Commando, about if there was any way to, I don't want to use the word circumvent, but another way to list the truck and sell it without auctioning it because it's such a unique item. It's not like a mower or a car or something like that. And he said no, but we did get with a good company that does auctioning for Naples Airport. And so he's going to list that here in the next couple of weeks. But Mr. Commando did suggest that, and I don't think this was done before, that you mark the truck as surplus. So motion to mark the truck as surplus to be disposed of. And he thinks that legally takes, I know you guys already gave permission, but he was thinking that one more step was necessary.
Is it formal motion?
Yes.
I'll make the formal motion that we mark the
I would say fuel truck one.
fuel truck 1 as surplus property to be disposed of
By auction or something.
by auction.
Yeah.
And I'll second.
All right. Any other questions, discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion carries.
And I'll let everybody know a date, and I think we're gonna run it for like maybe 6 weeks, just because if it's another municipality like us, they need time to have a meeting and approve the funds, expenditure and all that stuff. So we're thinking 6 weeks is the timeframe.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cam Blandy, any updates, sir?
Yeah, good to be here. Good, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Agenda. Shared information from last meetings with me.
Is his arm healing up?
Yeah, it's.
Good. I saw him at the change of command and got to talk with him a little bit. So, all right, thank you, sir. Any way we can help, always give Craig a call, and we love Camp Landing and love to support you. You guys have got some big money coming in from some articles I've read and things I'm hearing, so big things are gonna be going on at Camp Landing here quickly. Madam Mayor, do you have anything to add for the city? All right, I just got a text from Mr. Cornegay. He says that we got approval from DOT to connect into 100 with the understanding that it would be used for emergency ingress and egress only. And then, of course, when the improvements are made on 100, that restriction will go away.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Funding is in place to do the tie-in. We're simply waiting on the airport to reconfigure the fence. So thank you, Mr. Cornegay. He's tuned in and appreciate that update. All right. Any board member comments?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It was mentioned at the previous meeting that there's some sort of training that we're supposed to be doing. Bobby, you had mentioned it.
Ethics.
The ethics. And I am not sure about how to go about doing that.
There's a couple of ways. You can go to the Florida Ethics Commission on Ethics website. There are some links there. Mayor, have y'all had yours yet as a council?
No, not, I think they all do it individually. It's like the 4-hour ethics thing.
Right.
I know I did it last year and I'll do it again this year. I haven't done it yet this year. But if you go onto that website, you should see it, or Florida League of Cities also post it.
That was the next thing I was going to recommend.
So the Florida League of Cities
Host it.
does it.
For the ethics, for the role, for the municipality role. On disclosure 1, which I think you all have to complete, that's at the Florida ethics page.
That's Form 1.
Form 1.
We actually found out, and would you forward the mayor that?
I said that, and you said,
Y'all are
yeah,
exempt, right?
yeah.
Right.
Oh, lucky you. Well, not, you don't have.
Not me.
So I thought y'all had to do 1, we have to do 6, which is a lot different.
That's
So-
correct.
But I thought you all had to do 1.
No, actually,
Wasn't even in their database.
actually, the lady with the commission, Ethics Commission, called and actually emailed us with information from their legal about that we don't,
Because you're a dependent special
Yes.
district.
That's great.
yep,
So Terry, probably, just go to the Florida League of Cities, and it'll show the 4-hour, ethics, thing that you can do all online. I think it's 4 hours long. So,
Yeah.
but it's good. So, and we're supposed to do it annually.
yeah, it's good information. It's required information. Technically, what happened at one time, and the city changed it, made it an ordinance to where all of the board members have to complete the Florida ethics training annually. So, and that's something in our board, in our bylaws that we need to update, because we do have a statement in there under Article 2, Section 3. The last paragraph there, it also states that we have to complete Form 1 or Form 6. So we need to get that verbiage revised. I'll get Craig, we'll work on that and bring that back to the board for amending.
I know last year when I tried to get in to do the training, it took me forever. And finally, Lynn Rutkowski, she was able to get me on it, but you have to be registered.
You're right. You have to be registered to the Florida League of Cities.
So whoever, I don't know who's going to do that for us. I don't know who.
I think it was the city manager did it.
Or does Charlie need to do it for her?
I think it has to come through Charlie.
Okay.
I think he's gonna need to do all of us.
Yeah.
But if he could get us all,
I'll send.
that would be really good.
Just double check that everyone else is still there.
Right.
Yeah,
Because
so I'm pretty sure that's what happened, me and Lynn did mine also.
Yeah,
So
and
I've never, I mean, because she had to register my email address, and now I just have my password and I go in and do.
yeah, and I got to do it, but they never sent me the certificate and all that
So
stuff.
here's what happens with that. It's a lot different than what I do with my computer, because those were tracked like to the T. You just have to, I print the page that I've completed it. They just show a thing you completed it. I print that and I date it and I keep it in my folder. They don't actually, they'll come back and send you emails to do it. But I've asked them, is there somewhere I can see this posted on your website? I have not seen it yet.
Yep, you will.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you print it for your own protection?
yep.
Is why you do it, okay? But I will send Charlie an email to get you guys, make sure you're all signed up. And you're all registered, and whatever he's gotta do to do that.
The other thing, if I can add this, you may be a speed reader, but don't finish it too quick. You need to go through it because it's timed out, and if you go, I think it's 4 hours or 3.5 hours, and if you finish it before then and hit submit, it just assumed you turned your ad on or and it doesn't count.
They'll also, there's also a video that you can watch.
I've always done the video.
And and I think the video's even better because
There's interaction.
action going in on it, you know, where people are asking questions.
All right, any other board comments?
I just have one thing to add real quick, and this is just kind of, there's a lot of time between now and then, but just recently, the Air Force Special Operations Unit that came out here and did their exercise there were the 4 days, they did 2-day and 2 evening drills where they utilized the airfield, and they reached out to me recently, and I think Mr. Cornelius, and just thanked us for the hospitality here for the airport. They appreciate everything and being able to utilize the airport, and they're excited and looking forward to coming back next February, and they want to increase it and take it up a few more notches. So the liaison that originally approached us the first go-around had said, yeah, these guys, 1.0 wasn't good enough. The next year they went to 2.0 and then it continued there. So they're pretty much living up to that. So, but they did at least reach out and giving us a heads up that they do plan on, trying to achieve that in February of next year again. So it's just something that potentially could be on the horizon just to kind of.
Good, we want them to buy more fuel.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Any other comments, board comments? Just a heads up, Craig and I will be doing a presentation the 23rd for the Lake Region Prosperity Partners. They have invited us to come in, do a little presentation. We're going to show the video and do a little Q&A. We have another PowerPoint that goes along with it. So that will be at the Pavilion, Keystone Pavilion, at 5:30. So it's basically it's a part of the chamber that helps support local businesses, and so it's always a good thing. Any other comments? All right, it is 7:46. We will consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here.